Good morning. It's nice to be back, I hope. No, it's nice to be back. I'm going to be talking this morning about the importance of punctuality. Punctuality is important in the life of discipleship. Where most people have an instinctual understanding of punctuality, disciples have a more cosmic view of the power and beauty of punctuality. And we see it not as a disciplined practice, but listen to this, but part of the song of God. Have you ever considered punctuality from that approach? That it is part of the song of God. So this is what we're going to be talking about this morning, about punctuality, and perhaps more from the esoteric point of view. A sage talking to a student about punctuality told him a story. He said, one night, when a young lad was in the mountains with his father, searching for stars and constellations in the sky, he asked his father, "What is God doing there?" He pondered for a while, and then the father said, "God is a great composer. I guess he's busy composing." As the boy's family were all musicians and daily had an orchestra at home, it was very easy for this young lad to understand what composing meant. The composer, the great universal creator, is composing galaxies, zodiacs, solar systems, kingdoms, angelic hierarchies, plants, flowers, animals, birds, and men. All these are his compositions. We believe that he is continuously composing his symphonies and melodies and then playing them back in space. Isn't that beautiful? It is. For me, it's just this whole movement of cosmos and God creating this symphony of life for us removes us from the news media today, removes us from the strangeness and oddness that it seems to be unfolding with human personalities in the world today, and brings us back to center about the beauty and magnificence of life. So to admire these great compositions, we do not need to go to the stars. We can simply look at a singing bird, a colorful fish, a flower, even a human being, and see great talents or artistry and science that this composer has. When we imagine all stars and globes as musical notes, when we imagine all stars and globes as musical notes, we're going to realize that the symphonies in space are created as precisely as a musical symphony, having precise space and precise timing in its motions. The symphony in space is based on three fundamentals, and these fundamentals are precision, punctuality, and synchronization. The symphony in space is based on three fundamentals. So I'm repeating this: precision, right? Precision, punctuality, and synchronization. All instruments must be clearly tuned to each other. Each player must be punctual, on time, and all must synchronize. If these three fundamentals, precision, punctuality, synchronization, are not there, what will replace these three fundamentals but chaos? Precision, punctuality, and synchronization. When I was a practicing violinist and performing in various symphonies, in order to meet these three fundamentals in performance, it required many hours of practice. Not only at home, but the many hours of practice with the whole of the symphony orchestra or orchestras in order to present a most beautiful performance to the listening audience. We can imagine as disciples that each of us are musicians, putting in many hours of practice daily, the teaching, including meditation, study, and service. Then taking the effects of the practice into the group work. See, we have to do something with it, right? Study, meditation, and service. Service is the action of putting it into play in our day-to-day life. So we take the effects of the practice and refine it and polish ourselves in the light of the consciousness of the group. So the highest responsibility that we have is to find our right place in the symphony and to play our part precisely in punctuality and synchronization with the rest of the notes, the rest of everyone around and about us. Unless we are precise and punctual, we are going to create disturbances in the symphony. And the wheel of life is going to throw us out into space as a turning wheel does to a patch of mud stuck on it. There's a story in the teaching which explains a situation where a train was a half an hour late. Imagine that, a train was a half an hour late. Well, it's not so difficult to imagine in these days in the airport waiting for your canceled flights never show up. But this is going back in time, back when trains were really in, you know. So the train was a half an hour late. And a poisoned man died on the train because he could not be taken to the hospital in time. A young man lost $5,000 because he could not sell his jewels to a merchant who did not want to wait more than 30 minutes at the station. A pregnant woman had extreme difficulty on the train because she could not be taken immediately to the hospital. The train was late, and the driver wanted to speed. He reached the intersection of the tracks before the mechanic had changed their direction, and the train went south instead of east. Thousands of people were frustrated at the station, waiting for their friends and relatives. They spent time, money, and energy to find out what had happened to the train. Because the train was on the wrong track, it crashed into another train coming from the opposite direction, which was 10 minutes early on its schedule. as such, a great mess was created. Why? Lack of punctuality. This is a most dramatic story, but I think it makes a point. As I was thinking about this story, I was reminded about activities in the group life, in the spiritual community, which asks us for punctuality. For example, committee work. During the group's annual conference time, there is an overall committee and subcommittees where the members must rely on one another, just like the musicians that make up the symphony orchestra. When one player doesn't do his or her job, it then causes problems for the rest of the committee members. Problems which could lead to chaos if the rest of the committee or committees are not vigilant. I remember when I used to attend the membership meetings that my spiritual teacher held, a meeting where some of us had to drive 90 minutes or so to get there. We all had to plan to get there early in case we ran into traffic jams. We knew if we were late, we were going to be admonished with penalties. I recall one incident where during one meeting, and I know some of you here are going to remember this, I'll never forget it. Many people were late because of construction taking place in this small town called Sedona, Arizona. Those that were caught in the construction arrived over 30 minutes late. Still, more than 90% in attendance got there on time. Because why? They had anticipated the possibilities and left their homes to get there 30 minutes ahead of time. When the late people arrived, the teacher admonished all of us, taking advantage of the opportunity to talk about the importance of punctuality, of getting to the meetings on time. He explained there are no excuses for being late. Well, you can imagine those that were late had a lineup of excuses. It's very interesting. Much of the time, chaos happens because of the lack of punctuality. Punctuality involves a person with all that exists in the human being, all parts of the body, and all systems and centers and glands must be punctual in their duties or interactions with each other in order to do what? To maintain health and happiness in that body. All of us are designed in such a way that we need to function according to the programming put in our genes, and most especially according to the content of our permanent atoms. Everyone in a family must exercise punctuality toward the other family members if the family is to be prosperous, healthy, and happy. But the problem of punctuality does not end with the family. The family is related to what? To a nation, to a country. Every family must be punctual toward its national duties, responsibilities, demands, and needs. Our social and national relationships are based on punctuality. Punctuality can also be explained by a temple dance in which everyone has certain movements to perform. If you've ever watched a group of people performing Gurdjieff dances or Sufi dances, the whirling dervishes, punctuality is so precise, timing and rhythm is so precise that if one person loses that rhythm, the whole dance fails. The whole symphony of cosmos fails. The music controls the movements. And if the dancers are not punctual or do not move at the right beat, the dance will be out of order. Punctuality involves not only physical actions, but also thinking and feeling. Punctuality and thinking means that we think at the right time in relation to the right demand or need. Punctuality and feeling means that we have a feeling about a situation at the right time. Feeling, let me just step aside from this for a moment. It's not having an emotion about the right time, but a feeling. And feeling is sensitivity. You know, physical feeling, emotional, mental, spiritual feeling is about various sensitivities. And these sensitivities, particularly we could say, would be an intuitive sensitivity. So we can have an intuitive feeling about a situation at the right time. Punctuality in action means that we take right action in synchronization with right thought and our feelings. See how that works? When a person engages in right thinking and meditation, they create focus and a tensity in mental equipment, in our mental equipment. When we engage in right thinking and meditation, we create a focus and tensity in our mental equipment. It is this tension that attracts, listen to this is so incredibly beautiful. This tension attracts spatial energy. What does attracting spatial energy means? Energy from cosmos. Energy from cosmos means the cosmic heart. Hierarchy. The lords of Shambhala, all whom make up part of this cosmic symphony, playing in rhythm with the great need of humanity. This frequency of energy not only strengthens our mind, but also puts us in contact with higher sources of knowledge. More energy is absorbed into our system through prolonged and deep meditation. Expansion of consciousness. Expansion of consciousness follows intense thinking. Expansion of consciousness follows intense thinking when psychic energy is absorbed. Think about this. You know, these are words you can write down in, like, expansion of consciousness, and really consider what it is. What is it? Why does expansion of consciousness follow intense thinking? And when this occurs, expansion of consciousness, intensity of thinking, what happens? Psychic energy is now assimilated or absorbed, and your consciousness encompasses more space. Spatial energy builds the link between our lower and higher minds. Spatial energy. Because of this link, abstract ideas can be translated now into thoughts, and these thoughts can be manifested in a form that will help people advance on their path. This is how the teaching came into existence and continues to be updated as a result of the expansion of consciousness of initiates and disciples and aspirants in the world. The expansion of consciousness follows intense thinking. So let us consider punctuality in relationship to a group. A group is a mechanism, a living, advancing mechanism, just like a human being. The board, the committees, the members of the group will be able to function at optimum efficiency if there is synchronization among them. And the purpose of the group, synchronization with the purpose of the group, and if there is punctuality in their actions. Said simply, the purpose of the group is to strive toward the perfection taught by and symbolized by Christ and the Lords of Shambhala. So what we can ask ourselves as an individual, as a member of the family, a member of the group, a member of nations and their leadership, what is needed to synchronize ourselves to that purpose? For me, this elevates our livingness, our purpose of life from materialism, from the busy chatter and noise of just living day to day, elevates us into a consciousness that exists in space among the Lords of Shambhala, the members of hierarchy, the head of hierarchy, Christ. It changes the whole aura and image of how we approach life and live our life. So there is spiritual punctuality, there's mental punctuality, emotional punctuality, and punctuality in actions. Spiritual, mental, emotional, as well as punctuality in actions. So spiritual punctuality. This is interesting. Very short definition. Spiritual punctuality is punctuality of prayer and meditation. Don't miss it. What's so interesting to me is regarding spiritual punctuality and meditation, it's not just creating a rhythm to meditate every morning, although that's where it begins. When we think of how meditation starts with right thinking, and then meditation, and then contemplation. Contemplation as a spiritual, understood as spiritually punctual, means that we are now in alignment with Spirit to the Lord of the planet. That's where it first begins. So we've developed ourselves as meditators through right meditation, with right meditation, to where the whole frequency of our nature, our cellular structure, our nervous system, our parasympathetic nervous system. Everything now is now geared toward God's symphony. And for that for us, this means now we're in attunement beyond the matters of earth, and meeting and trying to meet and trying to line and trying to manifest the need of humanity as recognized through the Christ, through the Lords of Shambhala, through the members of hierarchy. You see what I'm trying to say here? It's like, oh gosh, when I was learning how to play the violin, I was given a school violin. Why I stayed with the violin, I have no idea. Because those violins are made of, wood. They chopped a tree down from the head. No rhythm or beauty or color to it whatsoever. It was just an ordinary plain wooden old instrument with 4 little weird strings on it. But somehow I managed, to stay with it. God bless my parents. And so I learned how to practice. And in practicing, that sensitivity increased, that I didn't like the sound. What am I going to do? And so my parents, got me another violin. And then finally, when I went to the university, I got the violin of all violins. And by this time, the sound coming from that instrument was so beautiful. Now I could imagine the composer creating this magnificent symphony that was made of a gazillion number of notes that all came together in rhythm and beauty and color and punctuality. Punctuality is rhythm. And that began to attract spatial energy, magnetically attracting spatial energy, where you could begin to imagine if this is what a earthly symphony of musicians sounds like, and notes that we can hear sound like, imagine what the symphony of cosmos is playing for us that we can't even yet hear. But we cannot hear if we don't learn how to pray and meditate. That's spiritual punctuality. Then we have mental punctuality, which is a punctuality of study and research and synchronization with the spiritual directions gained through meditation and prayer. It's a study and research and synchronization with the spiritual direction that we've gained through meditation and prayer. Emotional punctuality is the ability to synchronize with lofty thoughts and visions created by prayers, meditation, and study. That's emotional punctuality. Punctuality in actions is the ability to put into right actions the lofty thoughts and feelings created by meditation, study, and aspiration. See, these are all the different levels of punctuality. Thus, the living mechanism of a group entity, each cell, organ, and system does its proper duty at the right time, in the right place, and with the right purpose. This creates a powerful force on the path of evolution and the planetary life. Now, certain people feel imposed upon or under pressure when you talk about punctuality, being on time. They ask, how can we relate freedom when you're trying to impose punctuality on me? Or they think, if I am really punctual, now, don't I lose my freedom? My own will to act as I want? Punctuality starts with losing our freedom, and it ends with gaining our freedom. Eventually, we must realize that the sooner we enter into the rhythm of life, the better it's going to be for us. Freedom can be achieved through punctuality, where the lack of punctuality makes us eventually a slave. You know, White Mountain, for many, many, many years, has had a prisoner outreach program. And we have several correspondence courses for these prisoners. And in one of these courses, there is a two-part lesson where they are asked to talk about freedom. Now, some of these prisoners are what they call lifers. They don't have the option for parole. They'll be there forever and ever. Perhaps in an abstract sense, some of us can take our own life and see it the way that prisoner, that we're caught in life, in the waves of life that come to us through karmic reasons, and we feel like we can't get out of it. There's no freedom. Everything's imposed on us. We're victims. We're a victim of this life. But these prisoners, honest to God, you should read these letters. They're forced to thinking beyond their prison cell because they really want to stay in this course and they love this course. So then they're elevating their thinking about what is freedom really. And they begin, I don't have time to get into all of this, but it brings them closer into the teaching, into the purpose of life. They begin to recognize freedom within themselves, with their actions, with their thinking. And they begin to share these ideas and create groups just from this one little course, and begin to create study groups within the prison. Imagine they're beginning to think about not being in prison has made them a slave, but is giving them an opportunity to achieve punctuality in a way that they never thought about before. Imagine that. Punctuality is not a discipline of restrictions or impositions. On the contrary, punctuality is a moment of release, expansion, and synchronization with the rhythm of life. So some of those prisoners, when they get out of prison, they're not coming back. Now they can think synchronistically with the rhythm of life. In punctuality, you make a breakthrough and enter into the labor of a greater whole. Punctuality is not only related to time or timing, but as you can see, also to space, forms, energy, and purpose. Punctuality in time means that we must be precise in our timing, neither late or too early. If you are late, you disturb people. For example, if you are late to a meeting, you cannot play your role and you impose yourself on others. If you are late to a group meeting, you disturb the group aura, concentration, and focus. And you evoke unpleasant forces from those who do not like to see you late. So that takes me back to that moment. 90% were on time, 10% were not. And the havoc that not only did our leader talk to us about it for 15 minutes, he established a meeting that evening and we had to come back and listen more to about punctuality. So the same is true for the leadership. If the leadership says, be here at 8 p.m., and the leadership keeps you waiting for an hour, you're going to become agitated. Or if the meeting is to last from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., and the leader keeps you there until 9:30, what happens? Lack of punctuality in attending meetings means there are certain gaps in your consciousness, and that certain mechanisms in your being are not punctual in their operations. It shows that you need psychological and physical alignment. Punctuality tells us that no person can live for himself. He must live for the one self, that great self. We must live for the Christ, head of hierarchy. We must live for God, the creator of the universe. We are responsible to the one self for all of our actions. Punctuality teaches us that every human being must live his or her life with a sense of responsibility. They must exercise punctuality in their duties and responsibilities and in relation to the demands and needs of life as a whole. This is life. Whether we like it or not, we should not try to escape. Escaping puts us in the realm of chaos. We must exercise punctuality in our duties and responsibilities and in relation to the demands and needs of life as a whole. In an office, punctuality is reflected through the harmony of its staff, in its efficiency in getting things done within a certain time frame. Punctuality in an office is recognized by the rhythm created, listen to this, created from the process of perfectment and the lack of chaos. Punctuality in an office becomes so magnetic that it attracts higher energy into the work and rhythm of the staff with a resulting inspiration and unfolding vision. As the office staff works together in a unified rhythm, they become, listen to this, they become magnetized by the higher ashram. An ashram on earth is about service, a field of service to which the members are dedicated beyond their business and monetary affairs. This service must be a spiritual endeavor, a dedicated labor without expectation of reward, and so forth. The office staff of an ashram must work in the rhythm of the music of the ashram's purpose. With what? Precision, punctuality, and synchronization. The office staff of an ashram has, and let me explain it this way, a behind-the-scenes functionality. Each staff member in silence studies, engages in meditation and contemplation, and they refine their talents and skills to make the labor of the office more synchronized with the work, the needs, and purpose of the ashramic life, while at the same time engage in a service where they are able to care for others in a selfless manner, in a sacrificial manner. All, again, in silence. They do not talk about their service or many sacrifices because it is not a burden for such members. It is their ability to arrange their lives with precision, punctuality, and synchronization. In living such a life, they carry the fire of Agni within themselves, a fire which grants them the opportunity to serve the great ones. So this is just a little bit of information about the life of a staff member who works in an ashram. Sometimes people think they can buy their way into an ashram, but they cannot. They must be ready. They must develop those credentials which will afford them entry. Millions of people read esoteric literature, but they are not in the ashram because they have not yet proven that they can live a life of sacrificial service. They must prove that they can serve anyone, anywhere, with total dedication, renunciation, and without expectation. So that's punctuality. And let me tell you, I'm so grateful to be here today. You know, I'm not completely back to where I was, but I'm working on it. And thank you for letting Val take my place, and Louis, who also stepped in the last moment. That's synchronization in so many ways. Anyway, thank you for your support, and thank you for attending our broadcast.